Hi friends, it's Alessandra, and today I am beyond excited to share something truly game-changing for all of my fellow renter gardeners out there and anybody looking to add something fun to their backyard space. Today we are diving into the world of Magidomes. These are fantastic dome structures that add a whole new dimension to our gardening experience. Whether you're a renter like me or just looking for something fun to add to your garden, you are going to love this. But before we jump in to a step-by-step tutorial, let's just take a look at the magic of this Magidome structure and what it can do for your garden. For me, it's not just about the physical assembly because Lord knows as a renter, I have zero experience with circular saws and whatnot. But what I am trying to do here is create a unique sanctuary special spot in my garden that is going to be fun, visually stimulating, and for me as a renter, something that I can potentially relocate wherever we end up next. So you're probably wondering, why is she saying Magidome instead of geodesic dome or just calling it a dome? Well, for this reason that we're looking here at the screen. Magidome is actually a company, and this is a screenshot straight off of their website, and they sell these fittings that you can buy, and it takes all of the complicated math out of doing a big build like a dome and makes it super easy, straightforward, and most importantly, safe. You buy this kit and then you can get the wood, the fittings, whatever you want for your build. You can customize it. This just helps makes the dome structure shape. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of this build and how to put it together, a few things we should know. I think you need a friend or somebody to help you with this. Also, if you're a renter like me watching this video, you also probably haven't had a ton of experience with power drills and cutting and measuring a lot of outdoor construction stuff. So this might be a good crash course, but a buddy might help you bounce ideas off of. If you are also like me, you might be like, well, let's just make the biggest one possible. But we got to remember safety first, and it's best to look at the flat surface area that you have that you're looking at putting this dome and reverse engineering from there, because ultimately you need a flat or flattish surface to put this on so it doesn't go flying away. And then again, if you are a renter, you're going to be looking at potentially different hardware than somebody who's looking to make this build on their homestead that this is going to be up for, potentially a decade. It's really up to you. But there is a major price point difference in the hardware that you're going to use, galvanized versus, all of that. And then another thing, not critical right now, but something you'll want to think about while you're putting it together is, are you covering this structure? Is it going to be an open air build? For me personally, it's going to get covered, and this is going to be a multi-video series that I'll create a whole playlist, and you can watch the whole thing as it comes together and over time and how it holds up through the winter. I'm hoping in Colorado it'll hold up, but we'll find out. Only time will tell. So before you get started, just keep these things in mind in the back of your head while we're moving forward, because that will impact the ultimate cost for you at the end of the day. Magidome makes it super simple. What you're seeing here on the right is a screenshot just from their page, and it tells you exactly what you need to do. It's one set of the connectors, and then you can use 2x4s, 2x2s, whatever you want. I think they recommend 2x4 lumber as the preferred lumber, and then you can cut it anywhere from 4 foot to leave it at the 8-foot lengths, and it tells you exactly what size it will be when fully assembled. So a minute ago when I said, look at what space you have that's flat and reverse engineer from there, super easy. Now for me, in my yard, we have a nice sized yard, but it's on an angle. So I only had a little over 10 feet, but not enough to make the 6-foot lumber work. So I ended up with a 5-foot build. So that's what we're looking at whenever we see these pictures. I'm on a 5-foot build. So that means that I have 25 pieces of 2x4s that are all 5 feet. I bought just the regular good old untreated 2x4s at my local hardware store. I had them do the initial cuts. So Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever you want to go, they will cut them in-house for you, at least just the one cut across the base of the board. And then I ordered this particular wood stain sealer from Gardener Supply. And this is where your experience may vary from mine. I know that for me, I try to keep a more organic and natural garden whenever possible. I also know that I'm going to be covering this in plastic, so air circulation will be limited on the inside. And while I could buy treated wood that's meant to be outside, it's got chemicals on it, and not to mention chemicals that probably shouldn't be sealed in. And when I was having this discussion with the gentleman at the hardware store, he really advised against it. Now, that being said, because it's not formally treated with heavy chemicals, he said the standard 2x4s, even if we treat them with a stained steeler like this, that, you know, maybe they last 2 or 3 years depending on your environment. Could be more, could be less, but he said 2 or 3 years. And I thought, you know, we probably won't be here for more than that anyway, so we'll make it work. And like I said, in a couple of years, I'll give you an update. This particular stain that I found is, from what I could tell, only available at Gardener Supply. I got the color Lakeside Cedar. You can get a multitude of colors of your choosing depending on what color finish you want. But why I like this was because when I did my research and found that the bloggers who do a lot of the more natural gardening, the safer gardening, you know, chemical free, a lot of them recommended this particular one. But if that's not a big deal for you, put whatever sealer on you want. Just, we want it to be protected from the elements. Now this part is a bit of a doozy. The hardware is going to vary so much. You have a couple options. You can do the carriage bolts. You can do the hex head lag screws, which is one option. I mean, like, there are so many different ways you could do this. And then even in that, are you getting the galvanized, which means it's been treated and it could be outside in the weather and the elements for many, many years, or the zinc plated, which maybe only has a life of a couple years. Big difference in safety and security long term, but also a big difference in spend. A lot of factors. You should do your research on what makes sense for your build and your garden. We found that the hex head lag screws worked really great for us. You could add the wash, you know, it really just depends if how secure you're going with, if you want to put the washers and nuts on. I am throwing in here just so you can get a heads up. I also needed to get wood screws for the supports. That will vary wildly based on the supports that you do. And that's going to be in a whole other video because that was an experience in and of itself. But just if you're doing some preliminary budgeting, plan on getting some extra wood screws. There's a lot of new tools that we had to get to make this happen. We already had a power drill, so that was helpful. You can see exactly the drill bit set that we got to help make this project happen. That's from Home Depot. We ended up getting a circular saw, which, to be honest, was better than a hand saw. But if the budget allowed, a table saw or something like that would have been way easier and better. More on that later. So if you have a table saw, you're in for a treat. This is going to be really easy for you. We ended up getting an orbital sander for this. I think it was helpful, given that we needed to use a circular saw. We'll get into it later. But if you have a table saw and you're making really easy clean cuts, or you know what you're doing, you might not need the orbital sander. I had to pick up specifically a 1/2-inch nut driver drill bit for that particular combination of the hex lag screws that we talked about earlier. And having a handheld one for the hex wrench would be helpful. Clamps and a sliding T-bevel for angles will be tremendously helpful. For me, it was important to lay out the dome before we even assembled anything. So that way, one, I could make sure the footprint was as I visualized it in my head. And two, look at where the sun's hitting it, make sure it's level, and think about things like, where is the door going to be? How am I getting in and out of this if I need to seal it? Things like that. So make sure you do that before you start assembling anything. It'll make it so much easier for you later on. Pre-drilling your holes ahead of time is going to make life a lot easier, and make sure you have that hand wrench in just to make sure after the power drill goes through you can tighten things up and make sure they're nice, secure, and snug. Now you can see how some of them we put one end on, and then in others we had just gone ahead and connected the 2 pieces of wood, carried it over. It's really up to you. While I was here helping is the whole time like the best boy. Given the limited space that I have in my garage to prep everything, I had to get my wood done in sections, which meant it got assembled in sections. So we worked on the bottom, then created these V's, which point outwards just at a little angle you can see here. And what we did was, once the bottom layer was in, we created these kind of TP reverse V-shaped sections and put them in one V at a time, or one upside down V at a time, making sure we tighten really good before we go. And then that way we have areas that are secure, because then we could put that top horizontal layer on and make sure it's sturdy and not going anywhere, but we can do it in sections. Now you can see a little buddy moose here taking his turn in the starts of the dome. This is a pretty good sized dome. Again, this is the 5-foot length 2x4, so we can fit quite a bit in here, and even Moose is pretty cozy. It's a little less than ideal because for me, I'm a little bit taller, so bonking my head on it is a real problem, but the structure coming together is feeling very secure at this point, and we can tell that this is already going to be a solid build, and it's off to a great start. So we have the entire bottom down, all of the triangle sections, and then the parallel horizontal layer, that kind of top beam before the roof pitch starts. And you can tell there's a lot of difficult angles and stuff. I'm not that good at math. I don't need to be figuring this out. And this is why the Magidome set is so great. You literally don't have to worry about it. All of the connectors are at the right angle. So as long as you drill that wood in to the right spot, you're good to go. Remember that part about me saying you're going to want a friend or a buddy? This is why. 3 out of the 5 pieces of wood that are going on the top roof pitch got assembled on the ground. And then my husband and I picked it up, hoisted it over, and one of us held it, one of us secured it. And then after the base of it was in, we went in and added the additional 2 pieces of wood that are part of the top structure. Now, a few things to note here, though, is we did not go for the beveled pieces at the top, so cutting the wood on a special angle, because like I said, we got the base wood cut at Home Depot. For the initial cuts, they don't do angled cuts. But if you wanted it to be more sealed at the top, follow the instructions on the Magidome website. That'll make it look more polished and finished. If I knew how to do it myself, I probably would, but next time. And yeah, it's a pretty straightforward process. And that's the beauty of the Magidome. You just line everything up to where the bracers are and drill it in, and you're good to go. And that concludes our kind of intro to the Magidome. And we will be continuing to share updates on the supports, how we cover it with the plastic, how it gets winterized over the Colorado winter snowy season, and just all the things. And I hope that someday maybe we can have orchids in here, or worms, or something in here year round. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the progress of Magidome as it continues. And if you need help with the supports, or like I said, the plastic portion of it, those videos will be coming out soon. All right, friends, as always, I'm Alessandra. Thanks so much for hanging out to me. And I would love to know, if you made it this far, what do you think of the Magidome? Do you think it's super cool? Do you want one for your yard? Let me know in the comments down below.